Aruna Wary says, is Matthew 13, verses 44 through 46 about us finding salvation in Jesus, or is it about Jesus giving all for us? So this is a parable of Jesus, and the question is like, who's Jesus in the parable? So is the treasure/pearl our salvation in Jesus, or is it our value to Jesus? Thanks. Love your ministry. Thank you, Aruna. I'm very grateful I get to do this ministry. Matthew 13:44. Okay, let's read the parable and let's think about it. I've gone back and forth. Okay, at one point I'd said it was this thing and that, and I have some unsureness about this, but the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. So here's two interpretations, right? Let's just walk through possible interpretations of this parable. If the man, and that's the real question, if the man is Jesus, or if the man is us finding, say, Jesus or the gospel. Okay, if the man is Jesus and he finds treasure hidden in a field, then we're like the treasure, we're the thing that he treasures, and he goes and he purchases the whole field. He doesn't just steal the treasure, right? He buys the field, and Jesus would here be the one who died on the cross to purchase not just sinners, but he bought all of creation. His redemption extends to all of creation, although only those who put their faith in Christ will be part of the kingdom and be that treasure, so to speak. But potential downside here is that the man is finding treasure. And I'm like, well, am I treasure? I mean, we're kind of a mixed bag because we're hugely important, being made in the image of God, and we're actually really sinful and not belonging in the kingdom. And so it's a mixed bag. He's not just finding treasure. If it's treasure in some nuanced way. So there's a potential issue there. Now, if you interpret it the other way, if you say, oh no, the man references us. We're the ones who find treasure hidden in a field, as in treasure that we can't access yet, as in we see heaven and the future coming kingdom that will be on earth. We see that as the great treasure, and we're going to sell all we have. We're going to give up this world to follow Christ. We're going to buy that field. The problem with this perspective is that it implies that you're purchasing your salvation. By giving up this world, you're actually getting currency by which you purchase your salvation. And this is one of the things that's caused me to interpret it the other way and say the man is Jesus. Here's the thing. What we're doing is we're sort of, if I do that, if you're following my logic and you go, oh, well, then the man's Jesus. I agree with you, Mike. The man's Jesus. What we're doing is we're actually loading a theological rule that we have before we come to the text, and we're interpreting the text based on that rule. That may be true, but we need to acknowledge we're doing it, right? Like I'm using something outside of this passage, a principle I've learned, and I'm applying that here. So what you can do to help try to balance out is read more of the parables, and in particular the parables in this section. And so you have, to see if they give commentary on Jesus. And this is what I would ask you to do for homework, right? Read these parables and think, is there a consistent thing? Is the man in the parable, is there like one person in the parable, usually Jesus? And if that's consistent, then maybe we should interpret that as Jesus and take my preferred interpretation. So the parable of the sower, right? The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. In this parable, the individual, the one focused doing the action of the parable is Jesus. So in the following parable, that would at least lean us towards thinking it's Jesus. In the parables after that, it says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought it. This is a parallel parable. You can interpret it either way for the same reasons. So you go to the next parable. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea. Well, here we have a parable that doesn't have a central singular figure. And so that becomes a little more difficult to apply it to the last parable. Like if we're looking for a consistent thing, is the man in the parable always Jesus? And so I'm going to say, based on thin evidence, but evidence, that the parable of the sower, the one who's doing the actions being Jesus, that perhaps this is also about Jesus. But I'm open. So I don't have a firm, solid conclusion on it. Maybe I will next time I happen to be teaching verse by verse through that passage.